Hi, today we're talking about how to share about your child when they're not out yet. So, as parents, of course, we want to share about our children because we love them and we're proud of them. But when our kids come out as transgender, it's important to remember that that's their story to tell and it's not our story to tell. We can only tell our experiences in how we're processing that news information unless we have our children's permission to do so otherwise. So if your child tells you that they're not ready to be out socially or that they don't want you sharing about their being transgender, it's really important that you honor and respect their boundaries and those wishes. So then, what do you do next? You can first, it's important for you to have somebody to talk about your experiences being the parent of a transgender child, still, even though your child has asked you not to share about their being transgender. And the way that you do that is with a therapist, because that is a safe place for you to do that. And a therapist isn't going to share what you've told them. And also, if you have a real close, trusted friend who is a real advocate of the LGBTQ community, who you know is not going to turn around and share what it is that you've told them, it's good to have somebody who is on your support team who you can talk to in between being able to go to therapy, who's not your spouse or partner, because your spouse or partner needs to be able to process what's going on also without having to take on your stuff too. I mean, you can talk to your spouse and partner, obviously, but they can't be your person all the time. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there needs to be somebody else who you can be talking to that's not just them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you can still talk about what's going on without sharing about your child being transgender. And the way to do that is to use real generic, like neutral language when you talk about what's happening, right? If somebody asks you how you're doing and you're struggling, you could say, something like, parenting is challenging me in ways that I never anticipated, but I'm getting through it. Thanks for asking. Or if somebody asked you how your child is doing, you could say, Jenny is growing in wonderful ways that we never anticipated, and we're so proud of her right now. It doesn't give anything away, and it's kind of vague, and you don't have to expand on it, right? So there's that. You may also find that once your child comes out, there will still be times, or if they do, right? It's an assumption. Some people never come out socially. There will still be times where you aren't going to want to share about your child being transgender. And it will be times that you are maybe in situations where you don't feel safe to do that, or you may be around people who you don't feel safe to share with. And so it's good practice to sometimes go back to using your child's birth name and pronouns just as a refresher for those instances where somebody asks you about your child, or you can just say, use a generic they, there. They, somebody might say, how's Charlie doing? Well, Charlie doesn't use Charlie as a name anymore. And you could just use they. And you could say, they're doing great. Thanks for asking. Or they've been really involved in sports at college this past semester, and we're so proud of all the success that's been happening at school, which, you've only used a pronoun once, never used a name, and it's kind of like a non-committal answer. Most people, when they ask you about your kid, if they don't know that, if they're not a close enough person to know what's going on in your family, once they've asked you about your child, they're kind of half listening for an answer. And so whatever you say after that doesn't really matter. They're just kind of listening to be polite. And so an answer like that is just giving them an answer, and they're kind of like shaking their head, and then they'll go, okay, great. And then they're going off to talk to whoever else. So neutral answers usually are the best solution for talking about your child when they are not out yet. And then when you find yourself in a situation where you don't feel comfortable sharing about your child because of whatever the situation is. I also have a post with five tips in sharing about your child if they are not out yet, and I will put a link to that in the description below, and we will talk again more soon.